I've taken a couple of weeks off, probably to avoid saying some of the things I'm going to say now and weighing in on this whole controversy with the athletes taking a knee during the national anthem, primarily football players. I just have no patience anymore for those who would criticize these players, and especially the criticism seems primarily to come from white people. And excuse me if that offends you, but it's just how it is. And for those white people who say, well, these players are disrespecting the military, I say, come with me. Take a walk with me to my father's grave. And while we're in the cemetery, let's walk to the graves of other relatives who fought in the Korean War. My father fought in World War II. Relatives who fought in World War I. And yes, even a relative who fought in the Civil War. And I ask you, how did the military respect these people? I hear the argument, well, it's disrespectful of the national anthem. Well, once again, let's look at the national anthem. This is not a song that just celebrated this country. This is a song that celebrated black men who were getting killed for their freedom. For the British had recruited black slaves and said that if they would fight, they would be free. And let's remember that during this war, this was an aggression by the United States. And so Francis Scott Key, yes, he was celebrating country, but he himself was also celebrating that slavery would live on. So how does this song respect me? You see, we want to talk about the military. We want to talk about the song. We even want to say, well, it's disrespectful of those in law enforcement. But what we don't want to talk about are the lives being lost, lives that have been lost. I heard one white person say, well, these players are just making things worse. And to him I replied, what's worse is that Sandra Bland is not alive today to fulfill her promise in adulthood. That Eric Garner will not see his children grow up, and that Tamir Rice had his childhood cut way, way short just because he was acting like a child. So until we want to talk about the lives lost, I say to those who want to criticize these players, shut up. Just shut up. I heard a pastor say to me, well, they could also be protesting black on black crime or this or that. And to that I say, well, why don't you rise up and protest that if that's what your heart feels should be done? I read an article in the Washington Post comparing Colin Kaepernick to Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow will always be this wonderful Christian athlete who bowed down whenever a touchdown was scored, who was raised in a Christian household and homeschooled, who would write Bible verses on his eyelid, who did foreign missionary work. We hear all about how great a Christian that Tim Tebow is, but we don't hear the same about Colin Kaepernick. We don't hear that he was born of a 19-year-old single white mother, raised by this single woman who rose up, who has been a Christian all his life, who has done volunteer work, who has donated millions of dollars of his own money to charitable causes, and who undertook this not to put the spotlight on himself, but to put the spotlight where it should shine, on injustice in America. We don't hear about that. We never hear about the courage of black protesters. We hear all sorts of things about the Black Panthers, but we don't hear how they set up for feeding young students, having free breakfast so that young black students would not go to school hungry. Even Martin Luther King was famous from Birmingham jail, in which he assailed the white church for their inactivity, for they criticized him for his deeds. And it goes on and on and on through history, that whenever a black person rises up or kneels down, as may be the case, that we are criticized and told, wait, this is not the appropriate venue. This is not how you should do it. And while you who in the white community say these things, our black people are still being killed. Discrimination is still rampant, and racism is still part of our society. So until you want to talk about the lives being lost, until you want to talk about the lives shattered by racism, I say, shut up. Just shut up. Because you don't want to deal with truth. You want to deal with nonsense. You don't want to deal with truth. And so until you want to deal with the truth, just shut up. Shut up, I say, for you have nothing to say. You have nothing to add. You have no courage. All you have are words of nonsense, words that mean nothing. So shut up. Just shut up. And if you don't like the fact that these athletes are kneeling during the national anthem, then give them the reason that they don't need to kneel. Until you are as upset over somebody taking a knee as opposed to another black child, another father, another mother, another child losing their lives. I don't care in what way, whether it be somebody shooting, whether it be in a cop shooting, whether it be somebody else shooting them, until you're upset about that, shut up. Just shut up, because you have nothing to say. Until you're willing to take a knee, until you're willing to take a stand and say no more, I say to you, shut up. Just shut up.